Stephan Nilsson has big ambitions. He wants to persuade big businesses to put their supply chains onto the Bitcoin SV blockchain. His startup, UNISOT, is based in his native Norway. That's why his first project was with the supply chain for the Norwegian salmon industry. Now he's developing solutions that will work for all industries, and he says that potential customers are approaching him to see what UNISOT can offer. I first met Stephan last year, and today he seems more confident than ever that he can fulfill his vision for UNISOT.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
Stephan, thank you very much for doing your second CoinGeek Conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
First one was back in November last year, and UNISOT was just starting out.
It feels both longer and shorter because so much has happened, not only for us but for the whole community. It's just exploded.
Good things, really.
And good thing, very good thing. So many companies actually doing business-related thing, not just this coin making money on investment or coins and so, but actually applications that can be used in businesses.
Now, when we spoke last time, your focus was on supply chain, and you were particularly thinking about the fish business and how Bitcoin could be used to trace the process of a fish all the way from it being in the water and growing up to being on our plates.
Right, yeah.
How have you developed that idea since then?
Right, so we have got a number of interested customers that we are doing proof of concept with. So because we are working with supply chain, we can use that for any kind of supply chain, and now we have customer approaches us asking for our different kind of supply chain that has nothing to do with fish or even food. So one of them is for a furniture producer, and high-end furniture producer, which exports their furniture to the whole world, and they want to have this product provenance. So and they want to digitize the whole sales process of furniture. So today, that most of that process is very old-fashioned. So if you go into a furniture shop and say, "Oh, I like this sofa, I want to buy it," then the salesman goes to his office, he takes out a paper folder, and he looks there and says, "Okay, yeah, you can have it in 6 to 8 weeks."
Right.
Maybe. And people today, they don't like that. They want, if they like it, they want it directly. So that's why IKEA is so popular, because you go there, you see it, and you pick it.
Drive it away.
You have it at home in the evening.
Yeah.
The big, more high-end furniture producers now want to digitalize their whole sales process, and they see that we can help them with that, with using blockchain, both in their old-fashioned back-end EDI communication. So from the furniture company making an order to their suppliers, today that's EDI.
Sorry, what's EDI?
Electronic data interchange. So that is electronic messages between companies, like they can send an order, they can get an order request, they can get an order, an invoice, and they can send these messages back and forth. But now we can take that old-fashioned communication method, which is mostly file-based and SFTP-based and text-based stuff, and we can put that in the data layer of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And by doing that, we are reducing middlemen, we are reducing middlewares, because both receiver and sender and receiver must have their own middleware to translate the message from internal format to external formats and so on. Now they just have a UNISOT plugin, and then they communicate with the blockchain, which makes it much more easy for company to do it. At the same time, it gets cheaper and more secure, and of course auditable, because it's stored in the blockchain, so it's auditable forever afterwards.
So what stage have you reached? Is this product available to people now, or what?
No, we're still in proof of concept stage on this, because when we started UNISOT, more or less, we created a company 2 years ago, and but we were looking for funding, we were looking for people, and now this spring and summer we got our funding. So we have actually a couple of investors that were from the Bitcoin blockchain community,
including Calvin Ayre.
Calvin Ayre
who
is
is
one of them.
the
Yes.
owner of
He was,
CoinGeek, who I work for. So
exactly.
full disclosure.
Yeah. So he was the first one who actually started giving us some investments, but that also triggered other investors in the community to see that they believed in our idea.
So you mentioned furniture, and we've talked about the fish business. I mean, presumably in time you will have a product where you don't actually have to be interested in whether it's furniture or fish or whatever.
Exactly. No. So the reason for us to talk about fish and seafood is because we are based in Norway.
Right.
Norway is famous for two things mainly. That's oil, and it's for the fish, it's Norwegian salmon. So we came in contact with fish producers, and we saw that there is a need for digitizing the whole process. Today it's a lot of kind of a cowboy industry. They're using all kind of IT systems. They're using Word and Excel and databases, and they don't really have an over-gripping system. So this is what the company I'm working for. Before I started UNISOT, I was working for Ernst & Young Sky in Norway, which is an SAP implementer. So they are implementing SAP systems for customers. SAP is the biggest ERP system in the world, so the back-end system for all the big companies. So they have created an industry solution in SAP for the seafood industry. But ERP systems are still this centralized computer system in one company. And every company have their own IT systems. So we still are missing that communication link. Like we humans, we have Facebook and Twitter and all of these social media. We are sharing tons of information with each other. Companies not doing that because they only have this EDI communication, which is slow and expensive. So that is what is missing in the industry.
Right, so as long as everybody goes on UNISOT, everything will be fine. But what happens if one person along the chain just says, oh, I don't think I'll do that, thank you very much?
Right.
Does that mess everything up?
So we are actually planning to do this. Part of it will be open source. So the base layer will be open source. So UNISOT will just be one supplier in this public blockchain system. So we will be the first one, and we will start this development, but the idea is that other companies should be able to provide the same services.
So that means that other people could come along and provide a different interface to the same system.
Yeah, exactly.
Competitors to UNISOT in that sense.
Yeah, yes. So we start with a plugin module for SAP because that's my background. We're also now looking into Microsoft. But there is a ton of different ERP and IT systems out there. We cannot do all of them.
Right.
So I can see a future where a small local ERP system provider that they want to use this system. Maybe they don't use the whole UNISOT system, but maybe they be a partner with us, and then they can communicate directly on this global blockchain.
But is it in your interests to have that open source side? Because aren't you just creating an opportunity for your competitors?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, not, of course, but
I suppose
we don't do this just to make a ton of money and get out of it. We actually have a purpose on making the world and the supply chain better.
Yeah.
Because we have this problem today with the efficiency of a supply chain is only 20%. So 80% is waste. And the 20% is more or less only in Japan because they are very efficient. The second best efficiency is in Germany. They are on 18%. So from the fish eggs to the plate, the efficiency on the whole supply chain there is only 20% as best, and the rest is just waste in waiting times, lost revenue, lost interest in money and stuff like that. Money tied up in the system, and this is actually making the whole world economy stagnate.
Yes, it was amazing that anyone can make a profit at all with that level of efficiency.
That's what's amazed me. That with only 20% we still have a prosperous world that is working, but it could be so much better.
Yeah.
So if we can just provide this communication layer and be one of the first company providing this, then we see that we can actually.
But one sort of aspect of this that I'm always puzzled about really is that we talk about Bitcoin's blockchain being immutable.
Yeah.
And so this is great, you can rely on it, you can trust it and so on.
Right.
But of course, it's only as trustworthy as the connection between what's put onto the blockchain and the person who's putting it on or what's going on in the real world, isn't it? I mean, just because it's on the blockchain, it doesn't mean that it's true.
Right, exactly. So it's like we say, shit in, shit out, or truth in, truth out. So if you put false information in there,
yeah.
The good thing here is that everything you put on the blockchain, you are signing with your signature. So you're actually signing your own fraud if you do that.
Right. So it's
so
accountable.
I can prove that you made a fraud, and also if most of the supply chain is in this system, and all of the different providers in the supply chain are using this system, then it gets very hard for one actor to manipulate the information, because if there suddenly comes raw material from somewhere without a source, where did it come from? Where is it not from the original line?
Supposing I have a supply chain and it's all fully Bitcoined using your system, and I suspect that something is not quite right. It doesn't add up somehow.
Yeah.
How easy is it for me to go through and find out who these bad actors might be? I mean, all I've got is a lot of Bitcoin addresses. I won't know how to go from there back into the real world, will I?
Exactly. So that's one of the services that we are going to provide. That you can like. We have these services already today, like Coinalyze. Coinalyze is a company used by FBI and all government organizations to track bad Bitcoin addresses.
What, back to the real people behind them?
No, they're actually tracking it.
Oh, you actually
in time,
just watch out for this address
to see if that address has been used in some illegal activity somewhere in time. If it has been.
So you're on a kind
tainted.
of blacklist.
It kind of can be some kind of blacklist there. So we are planning to do the same kind of data analysis on addresses, so that a company could just ask for information on an address, and we can provide that where it is coming from and the history of that. But we make it on a level higher, so we do it on a product level. So instead of just an address, a Bitcoin address, we do it on a digital twin ID. So we want to put a digital twins on everything, or have a digital twin that is representing everything. So if you have a fish, it has a digital twin in the blockchain where you have all this information connected to it.
Right.
And while that fish is moving in the real supply chain in the real world, the digital twin is moving in the blockchain at the same time and changing owners and getting more information connected to other digital twins and so on.
So if something goes wrong, you'll be able to say, well, it must have gone wrong between here and here.
You will see exactly where it has gone wrong, and it could be a weight. If suddenly a fish is coming to one stage and it goes from 1 kilo to 5 kilos, then you see something happen there. Did it actually process the fish to add the weight, or was it just a fraud?
Right.
And as I said, then the company or person who did that has actually signed the transaction, so we can prove that he said it, he did it. And of course, what we also can do is to put machine learning and artificial intelligence analysis on this information to see all temperatures or weights and so on, to see, is this a normal weight or a normal temperature for this environment, for this time of year, for this everything.
So it would alert you to a problem.
So it can alert to say, and also give us a value on a truthability or reliability scale. So you can say this value is 95% secure,
right,
or 99% secure, and so on.
So when the product is sort of mature and people are using it, how much will they be aware of or have to deal with anything to do with Bitcoin, or will that all be buried for?
Nothing at all. The users shouldn't be aware of course they can be aware, or the customer can be aware, but a normal business user just making an order or working in a production plant, they don't have to know anything about Bitcoin or blockchain. That's just in the back end. And just like we are using internet today, everybody is using internet on a browser. Even people don't know what a browser is. Some of them, they're just using internet.
Yes.
And this will be the same. They will just use their ERP and IT system like they do today, but in the background we are using the blockchain technology.
Well, I think you can even see in the development of the internet that in 1995 people were writing down HTTP : / and you'd have that written up on posters, even saying, go to this address.
Exactly.
Whereas now, even with Google, in the old days, you'd be told, put this word in and then write the word and then that word, or put it in brackets and stuff.
Right.
Whereas today, in fact, Google says, just write your question.
Yeah.
What is a something or other?
Exactly.
And so, the technology does get buried over time.
Right.
Somehow.
So all the user problems we have today by using a wallet and long Bitcoin addresses and so on, that will be totally hidden from the users. So a company today, they will simply just when we get the payment functionality done, they will just pay with fiat currency, or euro or dollar or Norwegian kronos. In the background, we are using Bitcoin to do the payment, but the receiver will receive it back in euros or dollars or whatever.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, does Bitcoin as money come into your system at all? Does it matter? Does it make any difference whether BSV is worth, $10 or $1,000?
No, not at all. No. Because we are just using the Bitcoin as an internal payment in the transaction. So we don't, or the customer won't see that at all.
And what about for you as a business, though? Do you have to hold Bitcoin SV and therefore are interested in how much it's worth?
No, not really either. No. So it doesn't matter.
You're really just using Bitcoin SV as a sort of database product.
We are using the data layer that the Bitcoin blockchain provides. And of course, we are using Bitcoin all the time in each transaction, but just as a payment for the transaction itself. So like if you want to store a lot of information in the blockchain, we are paying more Bitcoins.
Yes.
But we are charging our customers in
You're paying to the miners.
We are paying to the miners with Bitcoins, but our customers are paying us then with US dollars.
That's really, instead of having to pay Amazon Web Services or one of those other data storage providers.
Still, each customer will have their own Bitcoin wallet, but they won't know about it because it's all hidden into the software.
Right.
But they're still having their own keys and their own. They have the responsibility for their own money, so to say. So we never store the money for the customer. They do that themselves. So we are never a bank or something like, or not even a money transmitter. We are just providing the network to do it.
it's interesting, isn't it? We've seemed to have come a long way from the time when Bitcoin was sort of basically you're going to be, instead of your dollar or whatever, and then, it's quite interesting, you can actually store stuff on it.
Right,
and now we seem to have gone completely to, in the Bitcoin SV world. I mean, do you think we've gone too far in that direction, or is that the way it is?
That's really, really where it's supposed to go, I find. So instead of being this digital currency that we were talking about in the beginning, we have evolved and it's now a data layer. But it's not only a data layer. The unique thing with this data layer is that we have built-in payment systems, which means that we can now start monetizing information. So internet has revolutionized the world by giving anybody in the world the availability to publish information. But we also see the backside of that if anybody can publish anything, we also get a lot of very bad information in there, very bad comments and fake information, fake news and so on. So what we actually need to make internet good again is to actually value information. So even if it's just a like on a social media, that should actually cost me like a cent or 2 or 10, just so that I don't just like anything, but I think once before I like something. Or even if I write a comment, that should cost something, because just to write "you're an idiot," if that cost me 50 cents to do that, maybe I stop doing that after a couple of...
I understand what you're saying. I'm slightly skeptical about that, because in a sense, if you get paid for attention, then there is a danger that you will write something extremely controversial, because that will attract more attention. It's not necessarily that virtue is rewarded. It's just attention that's rewarded.
Yeah, but the important thing is that the reply and to use that data is also have a certain cost, which means that, okay, you can publish something really radical, but if it has a value to people, they will pay for it.
It may have a value to people, but in a bad way. Might be fake news that they want to spread, for instance.
Yes, but at the same time, what we can do with the blockchain is then to trace where is that information coming from.
Well, yes.
So it could be that you just publish something, but if you have no source that is traceable on blockchain, you don't earn any money on it. But if you can prove that this is coming from a certain source, then maybe you earn more money on your article.
Right.
So that connects really back to our supply chain for the fish, for example. So the problem that we see now is we have all these big multinational companies coming to Norway and breeding fish in a very industrial way, and maybe not always thinking about ecology and health aspects and so on. But we have a lot of mid-size companies, mid-size fish producers in Norway who is actually producing very high quality fish. But they have a problem to get out on the market with that, because today they cannot prove that they have a good product. It's just the price and the package that they can provide. But with our system, they can now give a proof of the quality of the product.
I mean, I think it's interesting that, sort of going back to the big picture, that what you talk about with social media and valuing things, that there is a continuum between a sort of very personal comment that I might put on social media or something, and really some very just dry factual information that might be on a supply chain. The principle is the same, that it is information that is useful to people and has a value. Is that what we mean by the Metanet, or is that something slightly different?
I would say that Metanet is a protocol that we can use to structurize data in a good way. So normal users will never see Metanet or use Metanet. It's just in back-end functionality. But it's very useful for us to structure how we are storing data in the blockchain.
So the Metanet is a series of mechanisms that you would use in your product. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. So you can almost say it like it's a layer on top of Bitcoin. You have Bitcoin as the lowest layer, which is a protocol in itself, how to send information and how to send transactions securely. On top of that, we then have the Metanet layer, just telling us how to use that layer in a Bitcoin layer in a specific way to connect different data points to each other. And on top of that, we are building our UNISOT layer, which is then connected to the enterprises. So it's all layered on top of the Bitcoin protocol itself. So the higher up you come on these layers, the more abstract it gets from the Bitcoin itself. Just like internet is today, you have the TCP/IP network layer, you have the HTTP and so on, but on the end it's just a beautiful website.
Yes, I see.
So this is exactly the same.
Now, when you go to big potential customers and talk to them about this, is there a sort of PR problem in terms of, oh my God, Bitcoin, and all the sort of, the negative images associated with it in people's minds?
So when we go out to companies and telling about our solution, we don't start with mentioning Bitcoin at all. We are mentioning blockchain, because it still had a marketing value, but we are more selling the enterprise functionality, with be able to monetize your information, be able to buy and sell information, be able to very reliable and cost efficient exchange EDI messages with BDI. Then of course the questions comes up, what kind of blockchain are you using? And most of the big companies today have already been educated by IBM and the big companies that you should have a private blockchain. And then we have to start educating them in the problems with private blockchains and why we are using a public blockchain. And in the end, the question comes, okay, what public blockchain are you using then? Then we are saying Bitcoin, and immediately the same question comes up, but it can't scale. It's only 5 to 7 transactions per minute. It's only used by criminals. You can't store information there. So then we have to tell them again. So it's really educating. Mostly then the technical people who put these questions up, they can be very knowledgeable in blockchain in general, but for some reason they have not followed the development of Bitcoin and BSV.
Yeah.
So when we then are telling them that no, actually it's not used by criminal, BSV even less used by criminal, because it's all targeting enterprises, and we are doing today like 15,000 transactions per second, and we are storing tons of information in each transaction, and then they really the lights goes up for them, and they I haven't followed that blockchain, and most of the time we get a positive outcome from that.
It makes me remember that sort of famous saying, nobody ever got sacked for choosing IBM.
Exactly, yes.
That still applies.
That still apply very, very much, yes.
But
I also see that when we go out to customer and we present this, actually most of the customers we have today has come to us asking for information, and they already have some knowledge about blockchains, and maybe they have already tried a private blockchain and see that it comes out that it doesn't work. So then they come to us and ask if we have a solution, and then we are showing our proof of concept that we have done, and they are stunned, and then they ask what blockchain we're using, and then we are telling them, of course.
What would be the most useful thing to happen outside of your own company that would make your business move forward even faster?
It's adoption. It's adoption that some big company or organization should start using this.
So if you could go around and say, oh, well, Google's just started something using BSV
Right.
or something, that would be...
Exactly. Just like you look at Facebook and Libra. Cryptocurrency has got much more attention since then.
Yes, although that doesn't seem to be going very well.
No, it's not, because it's threatening all the economic systems in the world, and they are trying to work with them. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, the Libra thing is interesting in a way, because it's sort of like,
yes.
okay, so if you want to sort of ease conventional business into blockchain, then maybe this would be the kind of halfway house that might do that. But actually, in a way, it seems to have gone the other way. All it does is expose the problems of not going all the way, kind of thing. To
yeah, I think so too. You see, you get attention, and then exactly the people see the problems with that, and the next logical step is to go all the way in and actually use an open public blockchain. So it's still a mystery to me that so many smart, educated people are still using BTC or a Hyperledger or Ethereum, and they are not looking into what actually is available today: scaling, security, instant transactions, and everything that we have currently today in our system. They're still waiting for that to come.
I mean, it seems to me like you are even more optimistic today than you were a year ago.
If possible, yes.
Well, look, I hope it goes incredibly well, and I hope we can speak in another year and you'll be even more optimistic. But
I hope so.
Thank you very much, Stephan.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Very nice to speak to you again.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Stephan Nilsson. And incidentally, UNISOT stands for Universal Source of Truth. And you might think there'll be plenty of demand for that today. Please join me for another CoinGeek conversation next week. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.